just on shipping people stuff. Because I mean, it's insane, dude. Free same-day shipping for Prime members.
Dude, I ordered all of my home gym equipment through them because you know how expensive it is to ship.
Yeah, no shit.
Heavy ass shit. So I was like, perfect.
Yeah, same.
Yeah,
I have Bowflex dumbbells at home and stuff. And like bought everything I can off Amazon, free shipping, but free same-day shipping with Amazon. Like that's nuts, right?
Yeah. Do you think they did that mainly so that way they corner people's search, like to get a product? Like,
absolutely, it's instant gratification, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
so they'll take the damage of all that money.
Have you heard about their patent with the floating like Zeppelin of shit with the drones that'll I'm actually serious. They took out a patent for it, so they'd have it's like
they would have a big
floating warehouse, like a big dirigible floating in the sky, full of product, and that drones would deliver your stuff. So like you'd have it, within an hour.
It's like X-Men.
The Jetsons, bro. We're this close to the Jetsons.
So one of Jet's big USPs though is
Hover
we
ships.
treat sellers well. Like we actually care about your business. Like
I'm not even familiar with Jet. I've never
Jet.com.
Oh
yeah.
wow. And they sell.
Yeah, school us on this a little bit because
I mean this is Walmart's play. This is Walmart's Amazon play.
Oh.
So, because I mean, I would assume.
Oh, right? I fucking love it.
Walmart is probably hate Amazon, right? They probably, because I mean, what company's been hurt more with Amazon than Walmart?
You're right. Yeah.
And so Walmart has obviously the resources to fight back. So this is like their first. This is their overture. In the war with Amazon.
I did not know this.
Yeah, and they're pouring a lot of money. Like so. So in working with them, we send their prices, and you always have to let people know, like, we're going up on bodybuilding, we're going up on GNC, and one of the first things we have to talk about is margins. Like my cost of goods is much higher than average. I spend a lot more than the average company does to make every single one of my products.
Yeah, you were talking about this a lot yesterday, and you were saying how a lot of supplements have these massive margins, and then they use all that money to spend on fucking with other supplement companies or
just marketing.
Just all goes to marketing.
Yeah, like my marketing spend is on average like 14 to 15% of revenue, and that's fairly low for supplements. Like you'd normally find probably closer to 25% of revenue goes back into acquiring customers.
And that's because you're spending more on your product.
Yeah, and then also we have a very good, like our churn rate is much lower than average for the industry as well. So, we do a good job keeping the customers that we get, and we're continually working on that to keep, because that's where, I mean, from a business model perspective, your existing customers are much more profitable than new customers, and it's very hard and it's very expensive to get new customers. So it's actually pretty stupid to spend a lot of money on customer acquisition and not really pay attention to customer retention and not really take care of your
What company
people.
was it that really put that together first? I remember, where did I read that? Talking about how we focused for so long on acquisition versus retention. Who was that? Do you remember?
I don't know. I mean, that's just one of those little things that I've read it in so many random business books and marketing books. It's like at this point it's a cliche, even though still a lot of companies I think are behind the curve, and they're so focused on just acquiring customers when if
they got a big hole in the bucket, man, they keep filling it with water.
Yeah, if you look at it that way, exactly. So it would be much smarter for them to divert time and money away from customer acquisition and put it into making the customer experience better. How can you make your existing customers happier, and how can you keep them coming back? That's much easier to do.
How hard is it to have integrity in the supplement industry with your competitors? I mean, how difficult is it?
I mean, it sounds like it's the PR answer, but for me personally, it's not hard. And the reason why I say that is because I'm not willing to just sell myself out for money, basically. Like I just couldn't be that person. And maybe it's because I'm not a very financially motivated person. Like, sure, I mean, I have nice things, but I don't live extravagantly. That's not my thing. It's not like I don't have a Lamborghini or something like that. I don't really care about that shit. And I mean, sure, I have some nice things, and I'm more like I have a nice house, and because I have a family, like I care about that kind of. It's not that I don't care about having nice things, but it's not like I'm just dreaming about being able to stunt on the fucking peasants and shit with and fill my arms up with like Hermes fucking bracelets and like
squashing everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
I find those some of the most successful people we talk to are more like that. Very, very rarely. Right. Normally,
purpose driven.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. I feel like the other way is so short lived. Right. I think the guys that do really, really big things they're not. It's not about the dollar amount. Right.
Yeah.
So
what drives you?
That's a good question. I'd say first and foremost, I honestly really just like to work. So there's always like for me,
what do you think that is though? When you say that, like I love breaking that down.
Yeah.
Like because I enjoy work. Is it your competitive nature with yourself? Is it the process of taking something from nothing and building it? Like, what is it that you enjoy so much about work?
Accomplishing goals.
Yeah, I mean, there's that. There's like the standard, right? I think that happiness comes from like making progress toward, you know, knowable and meaningful goals. I mean, everybody says that, but I do think that's true. I think it's not something that you can pursue so much as that like it ensues from how you live and what you do. So I think for me, it'd be very hard for me to be happy as a person if I weren't every day making progress toward goals that I've you know, that means something to me. So there's that. I think there's also something to be said for, I find that like that's maybe one of the easiest activities for me to kind of get in that flow state, especially if I'm doing work that I enjoy. I mean, you guys know, there are always things you got to do that you don't want to do. That's part of that's just the nature of everything, right? I mean, in any area of life, it's not just work. Some of the things but I think that's one of the things that separate successful people from unsuccessful people is the successful people generally do a lot of the things that other people don't want to do.
You do the things you have to do now so you can do the things you want to do later.
Exactly.
Right?
And you reframe it so you enjoy the process.
Totally, because there's a purpose there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, sure. Do I really enjoy, you know, I mean, take just even the stuff, I was on phone calls this morning and going over, take this Amazon stuff. Like, yeah, of course I don't enjoy doing, you know, that stuff, but you got to do it. It's whatever. There's a reason why I'm doing it. That's like a stupid example, but so.
And it all started with writing.
Yeah. So for me, like writing is that, right? So I find I really enjoy researching and I enjoy writing. And I'd say that now I kind of extend that to I like creating content. So I do particularly like writing, but you know, I'm kind of ramping up my podcast, doing a few episodes a week and putting more time into it. And that process is fun to me. Like I like the creative side of that.
How do you get inspired? Is there like a process that you kind of go to a certain place, or do you like surround yourself with people?
You mentioned flow state.
Yeah. Not really, but I may be missing out in that regard. I've thought about that because it's something I've come across multiple times in various books that I've read. Like I think of there's a book, was it Daily Habits or something? It was a book that it was like basically short chapters on a bunch of just luminaries throughout history, creative people, philosophers, entrepreneurs, blah, blah, blah. And what were their daily routines like? It has a red cover. I don't remember the title, but something daily routines blah, 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 was the title, and then it had some subtitle, right? And that was definitely a recurring thing, is that a lot of people, especially creative type people, they have an environment that they kind of craft that you know, where they find they work most efficiently. And I probably could improve in that regard because I mean I inevitably end up doing most of my work in the office, just in my little office. You know what I mean? And
you just wake up in the morning. What do you do? Work out first?
Yeah. So I go to the gym first. I like
infrared sauna.
I do that at night, actually.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So work out, come home.
Yeah.
Lock yourself in
How long
your
have you
room.
been doing that, the infrared sauna?
Well, I just got it actually, so it's only been a few weeks. But you know, I'm excited for it just because like of the science on it. Like it's legit. No, I mean,
we were fascinated. We're on the same kick right now. We just got it last week ourselves. So.
No, he's talking about the
sauna
different
version, but
but hot cold contrast is excellent. The cold dips are fucking amazing.
I do cold showers every morning.
Yeah, raises testosterone in the short term.
Yeah, I mean, I had Scott Carney on. Do you know he wrote a book, What Doesn't Kill Us? So he went and hung out with Wim Hof for a few years, and he actually went to like debunk him. I think he was commissioned by Playboy in the beginning.
Really?
And he was like, "This is bullshit. No fucking way." Right? He's like, "No way." And then at the end though, he's like climbing Mount whatever with women in his underwear, and he's fully like, "No, this is not bullshit." And actually, it impacted him so much that you know his next thing that he's working on. I'm sure you wouldn't mind that I say this is what was going on mentally, but almost like it kind of opened the door to him to the idea of a spiritual existence because some of the stuff that he experienced. So that's like, I guess his next now deep dive is just into altered states of consciousness and spirituality. And like, is it are we just talking about, is it all just, biochemical, or is there something else to all of this?
When you can push, I mean, it doesn't matter what it is, but physically, I think, testing yourself physically seems to be one of the easier, and I don't mean easy in the sense that it's easy, but it's easy in that you can identify it. Like, okay, if I can push my body to a place that I never thought was possible. You start to realize that it's a lot more. There's a lot more to it than just the physical. You know, like I'm able to withstand this cold temperature, or I'm able to hold my breath this long, or I'm able to climb this mountain or run this marathon that I never thought was possible. You realize that there's a lot more to it than just your body being able to do particular things.
They get into that in the book Rise of Superman, which I don't know if you've read that or not, but that's a great getting into flow state.
I feel like I've heard of it. I feel like I've come across it.
Excellent read, Stephen Kotler, and it was they talk about, I don't know how much you followed this when you were a kid or not, but I was big into like BMX bike racing and motocross and all, and I used to watch all that, and I watched the evolution of the X Games and everything. And I remember as a kid, I remember watching and going, seeing the first like backflip on a bike, and it was like, holy shit, look at that! It was such a big deal.
That was like the
that was a big deal, right? And
breaking
then
the 5 minute mile,
right? And then all of a sudden, a year later, like boom, a double backflip comes out. Then someone does it on a motorcycle. Then and it was like we were all of a sudden within like a small 5-10 year window. We are surpassing these feats that we hadn't done ever, and
almost possible. Like Moore's law, but for just physicality.
And they actually talk about this in the book, and they say there's nothing else in history that we've ever advanced in that fast before, and they attribute that to the ability for these athletes to get into this flow state, and nothing.
Because it's so dangerous. That's the nature of the sport.
It's life or death, and so in these life or death situations, it's like you turn on a different operating system.
Yeah, and what is that?
Right, and everything slows down. So it's very fascinating.
When we were last was this week, we were hanging out with Tom Bilyeu, and he brought Dr. How do you say his name, Doug? McCune. Anyway, brilliant guy, and we all had lunch together, and we were talking about the power of the mind and belief. And for a long time in medicine and even in fitness, it was nobody really thought that was that important. Like it's all about the physicality. If you're sick, this is what's wrong with you. It really doesn't have anything to do with your mind.
Yep, totally.
In fact, in medicine, they separated the two, or they consider you a quack if you even considered any of that.
Yeah, like anything psychosomatic, if you even try to go down that road.
Yeah, it's complete bullshit. Well, Dr. McCune works with Dr. Ramachandran, who's the inventor of the mirror box. I don't know if you're familiar with the mirror box. So
I feel like I've heard of it, but I couldn't tell you what it is.
So people who have phantom limb syndrome.
Okay, I don't know this. Yeah.
If phantom limb syndrome, they lose a limb. So my arm gets lost in an accident, but they will feel like they still have an arm, and it feels like it's in tremendous pain. So although they know they don't have an arm, they can see it's not there, their brain is perceiving this tremendous pain, and many times they feel like they have this real clenched fist with their arm that's missing. And what he did is Dr. Ramachandran invented it's a very simple device. It's literally a box with a mirror on it, and they'd put their what's remaining of their arm in it, and then they would put their other hand on the other side, so they see the reflection of their other hand and see that it looks like it tricks their brain into believing they have a hand, and then all of a sudden they feel their hand relax and release because their brain is associating with that. So we were having a conversation on that particular topic, and then I wrote it down, so I'm going to look it up real quick. There's this other condition that I found absolutely fascinating called RSD. I'm not quite sure what that stands for. But it's this condition where, let's say I break my finger and it heals. I get this crazy sympathetic response where I'll get this ridiculous inflammation and in the arm. I'll get like this strange, scaling on my skin, on the whole arm, and they can't figure out what it is. There's no infection. There's no bacteria. They for a long time it was a massive mystery until they used the box on these people as well. They used the mirror box where the person would put their hand in there and then envision it looking like their normal healthy hand, and the fucking symptoms would go away.
so much power in the mind just to overcome the ailment.
So much power in the mind. And the funny thing is we know this because when we do drug trials, we have to account for the placebo effect. It's such a real thing that they have to account for it. That I think the future of performance and everything is all in the mind. It's not in the physical. I think we figured out the physical. Yeah, it's all having to do with stuff in the mind. So,
Greg Nuckols, he came on a podcast to talk. He was talking specifically the relationship between strength and hypertrophy, muscle hypertrophy. But he was talking about some steroid research where he had placebos. People thought they were on steroids, but they were on placebos, and you saw comparable results to steroids.
Oh, wow.
Just because they thought they were on
yes.
steroids.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I am on steroids. Like you have to say it every day.
Where's the fake steroids, guys? Come on.
We should make a supplement like that, right?
Just call it
If
that.
you can
fake-
just convince enough people.
air.
Actually, it's a homeopathy
There you go.
steroids. You know?
Yeah.
Homeopathic
There is
steroids.
testosterone in this. It's 1 part per 5 trillion,
Yeah.
but you've got some.
You know, yesterday, Mike, you said something I thought was really fascinating too. You really were hesitant to even get into the fitness realm. Like you had this passion for riding, and you talk to me and share with the audience a little bit, because I would have just assumed you were like a hardcore fitness guy always. What made you go that direction? Why were you hesitant? Share with the audience a little bit of that.
Yeah. So, I mean, my foray into the space began with self-publishing a book, which was Bigger, Leaner, Stronger. That was in 2012. It was kind of just on a whim. It was a nights and weekends thing. And I was just kind of writing the book, short and simple, something that I wish that I would have had when I started training that would have, whatever, just I would have gotten more out of the time that I put in the gym basically over the first 5 or 6 years. And I was curious. I didn't know if anybody would care, because I had no platform. I had no network. I had no name. I had nothing. I was just some dude that, could articulate things fairly well and explain and then say, just do this. And if it works, then that's what matters, right? So like in the end, that's really what matters. And so I, put that up in 2012, and I think the first month it sold like 20 copies. And I was like, oh, cool. Somebody bought my book. And,
It was your
Cool. Thanks, Mom.
Your aunts, uncles, your cousins.
yeah. Actually, I shouldn't even tell anybody.
really?
They were legit customers. To
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
thanks, Amazon.
Let's be honest, though. We all know that family are the last ones to buy your shit anyways.
Yeah,
That's true.
Not my family. They'll buy all my shit. I know I got 300 sales no matter what.
That's like a 30th of the way onto the almost NYT. You get 30
Yeah, exactly.
So anyways, yeah. So I had also put my email address in the book. I'd made, I think at the time it was like buildhealthymuscle.com or something like that. It wasn't even really a website. It was just like, oh, whatever. It's a domain. People can email me. And so sales then, it was maybe 40 or 50 copies the next month. And so people would write in, say they actually really liked it and they had some questions and stuff. So I would just answer their questions. And then I also ask them like, oh, P.S., if you like the book, would you mind leaving a review on Amazon? It's kind of how it started, right? And so that it kind of grew exponentially initially, which was really just through word of mouth, because I didn't do anything marketing wise. I mean, I had a different company, I had different work. This is again something I just randomly did.
This must have been exciting watching.
Yeah,
this
it was. I mean, totally. Because at the time I had credit card debt because I was an idiot, and I would go or it was going around. So
Really, because you're a very successful person in this particular sphere. So at this moment, you're like, no, I'm not doing great. I'm swinging the bat. I'm missing, and then this starts happening.
yeah. So I mean, to be fair, so how the credit card debt came about is, so previously, my wife's from Germany, right? And so at the time we did long distance for 2.5 years. So we were together for a couple years in Florida, and then her parents would come and visit, and she was going to school in Florida, and then she went back to Germany for a couple years and did long distance. So I would go over there, and I would travel. Sometimes she would come, but usually I would end up going over there every 4 to 6 weeks or so. And I mean, so I'm in Europe, right? So we just go and waste money on, staying in the nicest hotels and just buying shit.
You're in love, man. You're trying to impress your girl.
And so I'd come back, right? And my dad is an entrepreneur. He's built a couple companies and sold them and made money. He retired for a bit, got bored, got back into business and stuff. So, and I don't know why exactly he was even okay with it, but I would go and spend a bunch of money, and then I would get money from him basically. So I was just like a spoiled little, at least I wasn't a prick about any. I wasn't your typical arrogant douchebag rich kid or whatever.
Yeah.
But I was working. I worked in his company some, and I was trying to find my way in terms of work, like what do I want to do. So it's kind of like finding my way / just having fun. But sometimes I would go on these trips and I'd spend enough, like an amount of money where I'm like, I can't ask him for that much money, right? so I would just ask for like half of it or something, right? And then I'd just like let it build up my credit, just stupid as shit, right? So that's where I was at in the beginning. I had stopped that at that point. I got to a point where I was like, all right, this is enough, right? I think I had like $50,000 or $60,000 in credit card debt.
Shit.
Yeah, and I was like, I gotta stop. I can't ask my dad to like pay for this. I gotta handle it. I gotta stop. I mean, this is, maybe I was 22 and whatever, right? So 23 or something. There it is.
Oh, there's a book. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I like that. So So at that then initially with the book kind of making some money, I was like, oh, pay my credit card down. I like that, right? So yeah, I was actually excited from that perspective. And along now, I'm much smarter with money. Like at the time, I obviously didn't save any money. I was just stupid. But I don't know. But so by the end of the year, by the end of 2012, I believe I'd written 1 or 2 other books, shorter, kind of trial balloons, just some other ideas to kind of see like, hey, this one's doing well. The next one that did really well was a cookbook, actually, which still does very well.
Oh, interesting.
And I've also subsequently revamped my book several times, which is a smart business strategy. I'm not like puffing myself up. I'm just saying something like when you have something that works, iterating on it and making it better. You know what I mean? And so I've done that several times, and it actually took quite a bit of work. Like,
now, were you writing blogs or anything at this time, or
along the way? Well, not really. No. So
Wow.
I had posted like 1 or 2 little things on this Build Healthy Muscle website, but otherwise, no. I had really just kind of like by the end of 2012, I don't remember the exact timeline, but I had maybe 2, max 3 books. So Bigger, Leaner, Stronger, and then a couple shorter other ones. I believe the cookbook was in 2013. I don't remember exactly. But at the end of the year, Bigger, Leaner, Stronger was selling a few thousand copies a month, and
organically at this point.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
That's
through word
excellent.
of mouth. And I'll say also a big takeaway from, and it's something I've kept in up until now, is being helpful to people. So when people write emails, when they message me on social media, if they DM me on Instagram, like they will hear back.
you're still like that?
Yeah.
I messaged you and you messaged me, right away.
Exactly. That's why.
Yeah.
And that was me. It's not like an assistant or something, right? And I have a couple people that help, like my email gets hammered. And so I have a couple people that help with, sometimes they're very
filtering it.
Yeah,
right?
very simple questions. Like, but everyone always gets an answer though. You know what I mean? Where it's like a lot of them actually are fairly simple questions that I've already answered in an article that I've written or a podcast. So it's kind of just like, oh, that's a good question. Go check this out. This will answer your question. Let me know if you have any, let me know if it doesn't. And then, but I think this is going to take care of you. But it's just that point of really taking care of people. So up until, maybe the last year or so, I mean, I was spending 4-ish hours a day every day, and then probably 6 hours, 7 hours on the weekends as well. It was usually on Sunday, like I would be off on Saturday, and then so just answering people's communication, and that, I mean, does tremendous things as far as word of mouth goes, because I mean that's pretty cool. If you just look at it like you bought some book on Amazon, you read it, and you're like, oh, it's a good book, and you have a question, you actually heard back and got a really good answer.
What a lost art! That is such a lost art nowadays,
Totally.
to be able to do that, and those are old school.
Makes big impacts.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's old school business advice, is to be able to do that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And I think
It
people
doesn't
forget.
scale, but it's huge, and that's one of the reasons why it's huge. And it's one of the things that, again, like a lot of people don't want to do that,
Right.
Because it's not sexy.
Well, or they give up right away because, like you just said, that doesn't scale very well. But it's how you lay a solid foundation.
Totally.
Yeah,
and that's something I'll never change. Like that's always going to be the case. People will always be able to get answers to questions and get help. And I don't ask them to buy anything. Like I was never pushy. The most I ever asked for was like at the point where they were happy with my where they felt like they got their question answered or their problem was resolved. If they liked the book, the most I'd ever ask for is if they wouldn't mind leaving a quick review. And it was just like a PS. It wasn't even pushy. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Which is easy to ask for that when you service someone like that, right?
Yeah,
when you're
exactly.
helping, asking questions.
it's not
like-
much to ask from a person.
Right.
And so many people have been absolutely, they were probably like, of course I'll leave you a
Right.
review. They wouldn't necessarily think of it, but that's like, they're thinking like, that's the least I can do, that you actually took time to help me.
Right.
Well, a lot of your information is counter to the fitness common knowledge, like where you're kind of tackling some of the myths that are out there. What brought you along, on that particular journey? Was it your own training, just your own?
Yeah, I mean, it
yourself?
was, I guess my own. I mean, this just kind of ties into answering what you.
Yeah, I want him to finish talking about that because
they kind of go together, right? So, so that was the beginning is with Bigger, Leaner, Stronger, and I was like, that's really cool. But I didn't want to really dive into the fitness industry because I didn't really like a lot of what I saw. I didn't like that there was, speaking just to that,
Bullshit.
so much bullshit, right? And so many bullshit people that inherent right away. If someone is just a generally immoral, unethical, bullshit type of person, I kind of instinctively just don't like them. I don't care how much money they make. I don't care about how cool they are. I don't care if it's a girl. I don't care how good she. You know what I mean? Like that is such a turnoff to me in terms of who they are as a person. Where like I don't even want to be around them. I don't care even what it might get me in terms of self-interest. I really just don't believe in having those people in my life at all. You know what I mean? I do not want to be connected to people like that. And that's what I saw so much of in the industry.
Most of the industry.
Yep. And I also saw that like the way that it's at least what a lot of people were trying to do to get into the industry is suck up to people like that, right? Because you have people, they've put themselves, yeah, sure, they've hustled and they have established a platform, and they have that. I mean, it reminds me of what you were talking about with that book that I want to read, where like they are a person that could help something go viral in that sense. You know what I mean, they have that power where if they get behind someone or something, they can make it go. But I didn't want to play that game of like, again, just kind of like soft soaping people that I don't really like, and so that was one of the reasons why I was like, if that's what it would take, I'm not interested. And then I would say there's a lot about the fitness culture, so to speak, that also doesn't really resonate with me. I think it's a kind of cheesy and in some of it a bit neurotic and narcissistic.
A bit.
Oh my God. You're being very polite.
Yeah, you are.
I don't want to demonize I don't want to paint everyone with the, tar everyone.
Well, it's the industry.
Yeah,
I mean, when I first got on Instagram, I mean, me and Adam were talking before we started the podcast, and he's like, you got to get on Instagram. You got to get, that's the place that's where you promote fitness. And I got on Instagram and I flipped through and I'm like, fuck, no, like
Who are these people?
This is narcissism hell. And I don't know if I like this and what's going on. And, but I mean, obviously you can promote it the way you want to.
Exactly.
So that's what we try to do.
Yeah. And I'm the same way with it. I mean, I'm admittedly pretty bad at social media. I'm kind of inconsistent with it, and I don't really like it personally. I don't spend time on it because I'd rather spend time productively, and I don't feel like as an individual I don't find that productive. Like
very time sucking.
Yeah, I mean I use it to interact with people that want to interact with me. You know what I mean? Otherwise I don't use it. But so that's why I was kind of looking at the beginning, and I was just like, this doesn't really seem like I don't really want to play that game. So initially I was thinking I'll do a publishing company instead, and what I'll do is I'll take what I've learned about, because I would say like book marketing starts with the creation of the book. Ultimately what makes or breaks a book is word of mouth. Like it doesn't matter how much marketing muscle you have behind a book. Sure, that can get you off the tarmac, but if you're gonna stay up if you're going to sell a lot of books over a long time, it's going to be because word of mouth. It seems more viral coefficient, right?
It seems more that's more true for books than almost anything, because I can think of like right now, like 50 Shades of Grey totally exploded because of word of mouth.
You know that story, right? It started as like
So Hitmakers covers that story.
Yeah,
yeah,
it's crazy, right?
Yeah.
Crazy story.
Yeah, it is. It's a crazy story, but it goes right back into what we talked about at dinner the other night about how things actually go viral and stuff. So Hitmakers actually uses that. That's the book we were talking about. I drew a blank last night when we were at dinner, but they break down the science of exactly how that all happened, and it's really fascinating. It's a very fascinating story. Yeah. But you're right. I mean, it'll only if it's caca, you may have enough influencers to get it rolling.
Yeah.
But
even big people. I mean, you can have the biggest people, and you might be able to come out the gates strong. Sure, you might. You can hit the NYT. You can also just pay to hit the NYT. There's a company, I won't say the name, but you basically what you do is you buy your own books and you coordinate it through them, and they have people on the ground that go, because there's hitting NYT is obviously quantity. There's quantitative, like you need to sell a certain number of books, pre-orders first week, but also distribution matters. Where the books are available and where those books are being sold matters. So like as a self-published author, I mean, I have it's an S corp, and it's a publishing company, but it just is publishing only my stuff right now, which is something I actually still might come back around to my publishing company idea. It just wouldn't be right now. But anyways, so like if I were to publish a book and sell a ton of copies, pre-sales and first week, all on Amazon, right? Because I just drive it with email lists and whatever. And that does not mean I'm going to be on the list, because the people that that keep the list, that curate the list, that decide who gets to be on it and not, they care also about who published this book, who what is
the gatekeepers.
Yeah, actually. So this is clearly just this one dude's thing, and this book is not available in bookstores. Which, getting into bookstores, I mean, it can happen. It's just it's actually something my brother's helping with some book marketing stuff as well. I think you have to basically, he's going to have to sell a buyer at Barnes & Noble to put my book into stores. That's how big publishers work. They just have those, obviously they have those relationships. So it's like, what do you got coming? Okay, cool. And they work it out. But if you're a nobody, it's kind of like, what is this? But it has enough numbers behind it, like a few of the books where they're going to be interested. But anyways, my point is I could sell 100,000 copies pre-ordered in first week and not be on the list simply because it doesn't really meet their criteria. Self-publishing still has a bit of a stigma. As a self-published author, you know, if a lot of people would hear that and like kind of scoff and be like, oh, loser, right?
I'm a writer.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you're
like
unemployed.
Yeah, exactly it, right? So there's like, you know, there's a company. What you can do though is you can pay them. And so what they you're going to be buying your own books, and then but they send the money goes to people that go into bookstores all over the country to buy your book, and so it looks totally
God damn.
So I know several people that have done that because they don't in one case he's not a writer, he didn't care, he paid ghostwriters to write the whole book, he just wanted it to because he's on the speaking circuit. And if you're an NYT bestseller, especially in the business space, B2B, or even just B2C, but if it's like business related, you know, entrepreneurial type of speaking circuit, marketing, all that stuff, you can raise your speaking rates by anywhere from probably like 30 to 40% if you're an NYT bestselling author, just like that. Just cause
it's instant authority.
Yes, but because it helps them sell people to come. You know, like, oh, the NYT bestseller, so and so is going to be here. And if you get into number one, it can be 80 to 100%. Wow. So you can almost double. So you can go from like getting $20,000 an hour to talk to $40,000 an hour just because you have a number one NYT bestselling book. So a buddy of mine, that's what he did, and spent $1 million on buying his books because he was like, I'm getting that, right. And it didn't. I think he hit number 4 or something.
Oh no!
Yeah, so he was
that
pissed.
money.
The whole thing he was just pissed about. I mean, to be fair, I mean he has for all intents and purposes unlimited money, so he didn't care so much about that. He just wasn't happy with how the whole thing went down and whatever. But so, you know, you can anything's gameable. That's like,
oh my God,
it's just like you start looking behind the scenes, everything you see, it's all fake. That's the supplement industry.
It's the fucking Wizard of Oz, dude.
Exactly, right? So
and you're saying fitness is just
that's so the fitness. So in looking at it, I was like, I'm more interested at the time. Like I was like, I'm more interested in just books. I mean, I've always I enjoyed school and studying, and that's been a thing for me. And I like to read, and I was like, I know that I can do. There are big opportunities, particularly on the internet and on Amazon as well, with their marketing ecosystem, to do very well actually, and to be able to offer deals to people that would have a hard time getting book deals otherwise, because especially now, big publishers, they really want people like me. Like they want someone that I can go to them and I can say I've sold close to 1 million books now as a self-published author. I have 400,000 people on my email list. My websites get 2 million visits a month. I have a podcast that does 300,000 or 400,000 downloads a month. Like where they know we cannot lose money on this dude. You know what I mean?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's already established himself as a writer and has a platform. And you guys, similar, you could get a book deal. It'd be a little bit harder though of a sell because you haven't
done one before,
but you still could because you have a big enough. You guys could do it, right? But like if you did not have a platform, and even if you have a fantastic idea that you know is a great idea, very hard to get a deal. Wow. And if you do, it's not going to be you're looking at a very, very small advance, which is what it is, but low royalties. Like you have no leverage. You know what I mean?
Wow. So it was just the word of mouth that got you, because you didn't have any of that when you first started.
Yeah. But that also again that's still always though what it comes down to. I mean, Ryan Holiday, I read his most recent book, The Perennial Seller, I believe it's called, and I thought it was okay. I liked a bit of what he had to say, but I very much agreed with some of what he had to say. And one of the points is that, like, in the end, if you're going to create a book that isn't just a flash in the pan, if it's because that's really the goal, right? Is to create something that is going to still be selling 10 years from now, like what Mark Ripito has done with Starting Strength, something like that.
Yeah.
Like, that's what you want. You want something that's going to pay you for the rest of your life, and that doesn't just happen by accident. So. Again, at the time, one of the reasons why the book did very well is because there wasn't a book like that at the time. There wasn't a book that was really just breaking down flexible dieting and explaining it in simple terms and giving simple numbers, and here's how to do this, and you start here, and here's how you renegotiate depending on how your body's responding. And then on weightlifting, you don't have to sit in the gym for 2 hours a day doing bodybuilding workouts and doing like 1 million sets for your biceps every week and stuff like that. You can more focus on the heavy compound stuff, and then you can do some accessory work to bring up depending on what you want to do with your physique. Blah blah. like basic stuff.
Yeah, good information stuff.
Yeah, just good information. And again, it was like, this is what I wish somebody would have given me when I first started training. Right. So I was going to do the publishing company, and started it, like, came up with the name, put the website there. I was putting it together. And then in that process, though, it was about a 2-month process, kind of putting everything together with my friend Jeremy. I recruited him to work with me, and we were just talking, and I kind of was like looking at it, and we basically just both agreed that it probably is smarter to, there's, health and fitness is not only is it huge, but it's just getting bigger, and that obviously, I mean, not took a genius to see that, but
I just did some research yesterday that the entire health industry, which includes fitness, beauty, and diets and stuff like that, supplements, it's going to be they consider it to be the next $1 trillion global industry.
I mean, supplements alone are $100 billion plus a year globally right now.
Yeah,
and that's not sports nutrition supplements, but still, I mean, that's insane.
Yeah, so it's a monster of an industry.
And on the whole, I think it's great. I mean, I think it's great that it's getting, even take something like CrossFit, which, I mean, sure, you can criticize CrossFit, but at least it has introduced a lot of people to barbell training. At least it has gotten.
We made the same argument.
That's what we talk about. We did it. One of our first viral episodes that we did was why we don't CrossFit, and we kind of came after them a bit. But we also said, man, a lot of great things is happening. The communities that they've built, like that idea and concept, I think they've done beautiful job. We just had Kelly Starr on the show the other day. I mean, nobody was deadlifting and squatting 10 years ago. Yeah. I mean, we've been working in gyms for over 15 years, and I mean, a week could go by and I would see nobody even get under a barbell under a squat rack. So that, I mean, and we attribute CrossFit to being a major proponent.
I've spoken about the same, or like, yeah, I mean, you can always poke holes in pretty much anything, and CrossFit on the whole, yes, it has some systemic problems, but I think it also has done a lot of good.
Yeah, I think it's done more good than bad.
I totally agree. Yeah. I totally agree. Yeah. So then that's when we really reevaluated and said, okay, this is a big opportunity, and it's also is something that I enjoy. Like, and I basically, for me, how I kind of changed my mind on it is, okay, I'm willing to do it if I can just do it my way, basically, and not, again, play the game of like trying to weasel around, and one, like, I didn't want to do things that are dishonest, and I didn't want to have to associate with dishonest people. And so if I could do that, if I could make good products.
So the odds were stacked against
I was just going to say, which that's fucking hard to do.
Yeah, I know, but I was like, those are my terms personally.
That's the long game.
Good.
Exactly. And that's so I'm okay with changing my mind if I can do it that way. And so Jeremy agreed, and that's also just kind of the person he is too. He has a good moral compass as an individual, and he would be the same way. Like, he just wouldn't be okay with doing what a lot of people are okay with. It's just that's not him. So that's when we kind of pivoted and then started working on Muscle for Life, which then launched in like March of 2013. And that from that point forward, it was kind of like full time on writing for Muscle for Life and working on more books. And then Jeremy, because in the beginning, so like I thought that marketing, like I kind of gave that to him and said, because he was kind of like one of the lost boys at that time, right? So like he grew up in a family with a lot of money, and he had worked in the family company for a bit and tried different things and didn't really find his way. And he was at the time, I want to say he was like 20 or 21, right? And I didn't really know what he wanted to do. And so, but he's very smart, and he can learn very, very well. He's a very high aptitude, high IQ kind of person. And also good at execution, like he gets things done. You know what I mean? And so
everybody needs one of those.
Yeah, I know. Everybody needs a Jeremy. That's true. And so I saw that in him, and so I recruited him and kind of told him like, all right, so, and he respected me just because, I despite having my kind of bon vivant days a little bit of my European debt accumulation, he also saw that like I'm actually a pretty conscientious individual. Like I do work hard and I get things done, and I don't go too off the rails as an individual, right? So, I told him like, okay, you're gonna learn marketing. That's what you need to do. You need to become a really good marketer, and I think you're gonna like it. I think it fits your personality. There's always new things to learn, always new things to do, and once you figure something out, that's very easy to then you kind of delegate things out once you have things working. But very good marketers are very good at ideation. They're very good at like coming up with theories on what might work, and then doing it, and then quantifying it and seeing what happens, right? And that's it's hard to find people that are really good at that. So that was like, I kind of threw him in, just said, okay, and here's some resources. At that time, I would say I was a decent marketer. I had decent marketing instincts, kind of a generalist because I had dabbled in the internet marketing space, more from the educational side of things. So we kind of then at that point was like, okay, so he had to learn marketing, right? So through Muscle for Life, that was kind of the beginning. And then we started working on Legion that year as well, putting it all together. If I remember correctly, it was about 6 months of work to go from like the decision to get into supplements to actually launching. So
did everything go accordingly? Was this like the vision and the plan, or did things just unfold? I mean, did you see it?
So I definitely So what at that time what I saw was that I knew there's an opportunity in supplements, and I believe.
Now, what was the opportunity that you saw?
So it was one, to scratch my own itch, honestly, to make products that I myself wanted, good products that I knew ultimately would just come down to like spending more on them than most people would, and spending that money intelligently, which means finding people that were very knowledgeable and giving them almost carte blanche. Like that's how we still do it now. Is like, there's one person that I can't say who it is yet, but very, very smart. I mean, people would know if I were to say who it is. A lot of the people, if you follow supplementation, you know who this guy is. Very, very bright. And so kind of tell him, hey, let's do like whatever it is, multivitamin, pre-workout, blah, blah, blah. And we start with no budgetary restrictions. Like, don't even, just make the ultimate, multivitamin. What
that's
would
the starting point.
Yeah, what would that look like, right? And then we get it costed. And like in the case of the pre-workout, I remember specifically, it came back at $70 a bottle, our cost. I was like, yeah, okay.
The first $200 pre-workout.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I wonder if somebody would buy that. Somebody would buy that.
Right. What the hell was in there, man?
Yeah.
Unicorn
Gold.
dust.
Yeah, exactly.
Little cocaine.
Yeah, I mean, if gold dust, that there's a market for that.
There is.
There's like I saw some news story. I think it was around
classy.
here. It was like Silicon Valley, where some $700 a head restaurant where you're eating like steak with gold flakes.
Just
and
gold
shit.
flakes.
Hey, if people are gonna,
So you
if
can
people
shit
pay,
gold too, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. People will pay for it. There are some people, maybe in this, maybe guys in the Silicon Valley.
There's a status to that.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
Where like you want to make sure everybody knows that
gold
that's
inside.
what you're taking.
When we turn off the mics, we'll come up with that product together.
This has
good.
gold in it. You're too poor. Like, if you,
Not for poor people.
It's not for
Not-
you.
yeah.
Takeaway clothes.
How
You know
This
who
is
you
not
are.
for poor people.
If this is for you.
That's the tag.
How bad do you want to get in shape? Will you
Yeah.
spend all your money?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God.
So then now what we have to do though from there is find out, okay, what are the cost drivers in terms of the ingredients? And we've run into that multiple times where it's usually one or two ingredients in particular that are just super expensive. So like for our greens supplement, we wanted anthocyanins and we wanted a good dose of anthocyanins. Turns out it's absurdly expensive to get a good dose of anthocyanins, just because it's very expensive to produce them and extract them from the berries. You know what I mean? So that alone was going to be $30 a bottle. We're like, okay. So we have two options now. We can Pixie Dust with some, and so just says it on the label.
Explain that, by the way.
So that's like just including a very small, ineffective dose, a nominal dose of something, simply so you can put it on your label.
How common do you think that is?
Everybody does. Right. I mean, it's such a thing. Whenever you see proprietary blends, like there it is. You know what I mean? That's what that is. So proprietary blends. It's when you're looking at what's in there, it's listed by weight. So whatever is first on the list, that's what it contains the most of. Right. But what you don't know is that the proportions. It's not like those are all in equal doses. I mean, it could be 99% maltodextrin in the beginning of that prop blend, and then have 9 other ingredients, and those all could be like a milligram each. So yeah, that's Pixie Dusting, is putting a little bit of something in there just so you can say, oh, and it has blah, and that's really that shit's good for you.
It has peptides.
Yeah, exactly.
Molecules.
Muscle
Chemistry.
molecules. HMB. Then what we can do is we could do that, or we can just get rid of it. So we always just get rid of it. Like if it gets below the clinical effective dose, then we just have to kill the ingredient. So then there's a balancing game.
Which takes some integrity to do that, right?
Yeah, I mean,
'cause you probably would sell more to be able to say we've got this in here, right?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. But so I look at it, I mean, one, there's a moral component to me, which is kind of non-negotiable. But even if that weren't the case, even if I was more just like a greedy capitalist about it, I look at it and I go, okay, yes.
Like Smeagol there for a second.
That's how all capitalists are.
Yeah, sorry.
Shekels. So I could say maybe it would help me acquire more customers possibly, because it might make for a little bit sexier of a pitch. Although, I mean, in my experience, a lot of people, they don't quite understand, even if you try to go out of your way to explain the ingredients and what they are and why they're in there and why you put them in this doses. A lot of people aren't tremendously interested in that, actually. They're kind of buying it more on I would say like that they just trust me, for example. A lot of people just buy the stuff. They just trust that I'm producing a good product, even though if you look at my website, if you look at any of the sales pages, they're pretty, they're long form and they really break everything down and really explain every ingredient. But, I believe it's heat mapping is what you use for that. Well, you can see, yeah, I guess like a function of the heat mapping where you can see how far down people scroll. On average, maybe 30 or 40% even make it to the bottom of the sales page. And, it really starts to drop off right around right when you start getting into the details of the product. So a lot of people are kind of just buying it.
This builds muscle and burns fat. Yeah, find out how. I don't need to.
Yeah, there's
if he says it, then I'll do it.
Yeah. They're, and I understand. I mean, that's just the nature of consumer psychology.
But that makes you feel responsible, which is good.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people actually appreciate that though, and that has won me a lot of very educated and discerning consumers that will specifically even email in to be like, it'll be some PhD, and he'll really actually appreciate that. We have taken the time to really lay this product out in the formulation. Of course, it's not just all transparent in terms of what's in there and what amount, but also why. Like, why is this in here, and what's the relevant research, and why even that dose? Like, how you say that's a clinically effective dose, but where's the research? What are you basing that on? You know what I mean? So, because again, like how I've gone about it from that perspective is, I wanted to meet that standard where I could have someone like the guy that I work on the formulations with. I wanted someone like him to be able to read that copy and not be able to tear it apart. You know what I mean? Be like, that's solid. Like,
there's a lot that goes into trying to make a good, decent product, and it's so easy to not do that.
Yeah.
I mean, and you're not even talking about like lying, like just flat out lying, like a lot of supplement companies do. I remember reading some of these early independent lab reports on these supplements, and I was blown away. I was a young kid. I'd be taking supplements left and right.
Same. I used to spend $100 a month on.
Yeah, and I'd read this report, and it's like, this is the best one in testing, and it had 70% of its label. I'm like, that's the best one?
Yeah. The
best one at 70%?
Yeah.
I mean, how widespread is that? Have you actually gone out and tested other products to see?
Not other products, just because. I guess I don't really care. I probably know but I test my own. I use Eurofins, which is a big respected lab, and it's expensive. But we do once or twice a year we do like spot checks because
you want to make sure the manufacturer.
Yeah, exactly. But I've done the full. In it, I would say I think the last time I did full was like $30,000 to get everything tested. But I just it's a peace of mind for me to know that I know what I'm ordering, I know what I want, and I know what I'm paying for. But and at this point, I actually very much do trust my manufacturer. They have a very good reputation. They work with very, very big, not just sports nutrition, but like pharmaceutical companies and shit. Like they don't fuck around. They're actually good guys. But still, it's just a matter of quality control. Because I actually have caught a couple times where this is not them trying to fuck me, but where they had gotten, for example, there was supposed to be like an extract was supposed to be standardized for a certain molecule to a certain amount, and they didn't get that, or they messed up on their raw purchase. And so it's not that it didn't have what I wanted in there, it just wasn't in the amount that I wanted. So I have caught that. That was one time on one product, and then it hasn't happened again. So I mean, that I wouldn't have otherwise known, and it wasn't them trying to fuck me at all. And it was just like an honest mistake. Yeah, an honest mistake. Purchased the wrong raw.
And sometimes when you take a product and you be like, oh, it doesn't work, sometimes it's not because the ingredient that it lists isn't effective. Sometimes it's because it doesn't have any in it. So then now you're like, oh, creatine doesn't work. I tried it and it doesn't work. Well, what you were taking didn't have any creatine.
Yeah, no, like maltodextrin doesn't work. Yeah.
Yeah. And I experienced this. So we don't we don't promote supplements that often. In fact, some people say we're anti, but we're not anti. We're just anti bullshit.
Yeah.
And there was one particular.
We're also in order of operation. So that's
what's the most important?
It's like if you're not fucking eating correctly, you're programming shit, and you're taking all the best supplements in the world. What the fuck is it really doing for you? Right.
And that's part of like the sales pitch of. I mean, that's like on my website. Like this, supplements do not build a great physique. And just that point, you have to know. And I really tell people, and this is built into sales pitches, like supplementation is for if you have the budget and you have the inclination. And I would say that I do personally like, and I more strongly recommend actually just a few things for health purposes, like an omega-3 supplement. I mean, I personally do fish oil, vitamin D, depending on your levels. You can get tested and know. Most people though have to supplement with a fair amount of vitamin D. Even now that we know that vitamin D sufficiency is a bit higher than what we once thought, where most people probably need to take anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 IUs a day to be at the upper levels of where you want to be.
What do you think about the whole 10 minutes of sun exposure and you'll get all the vitamin D that you need? I
mean, I've read up a fair amount on this, so that's where I'm coming from. But from what I've read, and this is also according to Dr. Michael Holick, he's like the vitamin D guru, right? He spends his life's work studying vitamin D basically, and if I remember correctly, it was about like 15 minutes per day with at least 70% of your skin exposed. Also, it depends on where you are, like equatorially.
And your skin color and all that stuff.
Yeah, and how exactly. There's that as well, like how much melatonin, how dark or light your skin is. And so, yes, if you were to do like 15 minutes with most of your skin exposed every day, you might be fine.
Yeah, but how many people who does that? Yeah, who walks out in their underwear?
Oh yeah, right. I got to go
for 15 minutes in their underwear and get sun. Well, just you.
I do it all the time.
Yeah. And then there's winter.
Yeah.
If you're in a state that has a winter.
Right.
And another factor is cholesterol. You have to have a certain amount of cholesterol in your body to synthesize vitamin D. So if you're on a statin or you have really low cholesterol, people never talk about the dangers of low cholesterol. One of them is you're much more likely to have a vitamin D deficiency. Vitamin D acts like a hormone in the body, by the way.
Yep.
In fact, I've heard
every cell has a receptor.
Yeah, I've heard people actually say vitamin D should be classified as a hormone.
Yeah, I mean that was one of Michael Holick's big. I mean that came from his research, like that revelation that this isn't just like a bone vitamin like we thought. There's a bit more to this.
What's funny to me is they'll have populations who will use like shit tons of sunscreen. And they'll see a small drop in skin cancer, but that you'll see an increase in all other cancers,
chronic illnesses,
and chronic illnesses because of the vitamin D deficiency.
Yeah.
Yesterday we were talking about just your own personal motivation with fitness and how it switched from, I guess when you were younger, like a lot of us, it was to get look a certain way.
Yeah.
And now you're
girls.
To impress.
Let's be honest.
Yeah. And now it's much more health focused, but as a side effect, you're noticing great aesthetic results as well.
Yeah.
I mean, when did that transition happen for you?
That's a good question. I would say that along the way, I mean, I've always been cognizant of my health. When I was never really a hypochondriac, but I wasn't worrying about, is everything I'm eating GMO free and gluten free and blah, blah, blah. But I generally would eat well and grew up playing sports and never really had any physical or health issues. So it wasn't really something that ever occurred to me. I just had good habits, I guess. And so I would say there wasn't a major shift because I feel like, for the last probably 4 years or so, 3 or 4 years, I've been pretty happy with my physique, and I haven't, I wanted to work on certain things just for the sake of having a game. At least I'm working towards something. In some cases, it was more performance-based, like certain numbers on my big lifts, and in other cases, it was more just like, having more calves, which is probably a waste of time, but I'm still trying.
Oh man!
And join the club, bro.
The calf pity party here.
No, you're good.
Oh man,
that's trying,
bro. That's like 5 times a week, bro.
I put some volume into these guys, dude. You might be surprised.
You got Sal calves. Come up with a calf.
I'm still.
Right. That's a good Game over right there, dude.
Yeah, that's it. And so there wasn't a major shift. So I've been pretty happy with where my physique is at, and also I think I have a good sense of what is actually attainable naturally. Like, yeah, sure, there are. If I were to get on the right cycle, I would like how that looks. Absolutely, that's true. But I know that like, yeah, that's only happening with drugs. If I know that, I mean, even just given, if we want to be scientific about it, like using Casey Butts's research on maximum muscular potential, given my wrists and ankles, right?
I've done this. There's like a calculator online, right?
Yeah, I have one on my site. Yeah.
Oh, do you? Maybe it was on your site that I did it.
Maybe.
It might have been, yeah. It'll tell you what your potential is, your natural potential.
Yeah, we have a couple up there based on a couple models. And
have you reached yours?
No. So, and that's where but also there's something though, my weight is strangely low. So I weigh like 192, 193.
Okay.
And it's not because I don't train legs. Like my legs, my calves suck, but my upper legs are pretty fortunate with my upper body.
Me and you have a similar build. You're a little heavier than I am, but we have a very similar build.
Yeah, exactly.
You're a little more broad than I am.
Yeah. So, but like people will guess my weight. They usually guess me, 10-ish pounds heavier. They'll guess me more around 200, 205. Even like when I was at Universal Studios years ago, there was a girl. She was, I don't remember what kind of booth, but she used to run the weight guessing booth, right? And like if they guess you wrong by X number of pounds, you win something, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so just randomly, I was like, I was like pretty lean, but I was smaller as well. It was the first time I really got lean, and I was like 183, 184 at the time. And so she guessed me like 196 or something like that. So my weight has always been a bit strangely low. Even guys I've worked out with that I'll be a bit bigger than everywhere, but I'll be like 7 pounds lighter, right? So taking that into account, I would like, according to the calculators and the models, apparently at about 10% I could weigh 215. I don't think that's the case.
Oh shit.
I don't think that's the case. I mean, just because again, I know my weight is strange. I do think though that I could probably be 10 pounds heavier. I do think and it would probably take a few years of like, and I'd have to be in a surplus for a lot of that time and have to, just do the thing and really push my volume and really work hard at it. I think I probably could walk around it now, get to like where I'm at with my body fat right now. I probably could be 10 pounds heavier if I wanted to. But I'm not. I'm kind of happy again with where I'm at.
Yeah, there's a bit of a trade-off, I think, when you start to push those limits. For
sure, and then that also comes into the health issue where like I'm more concerned. What has changed for me, and if I look at it like 3 or 4 years ago, even 5 years ago, is I've noticed that my recovery is a little bit worse. It's not bad, but like I can't push myself as hard, especially on heavy squat, deadlift. I see it mostly there. Mostly I'm on heavy squatting and deadlifting. I can't push the volume as much as I could 4-ish years ago, with heavy weight.
I notice the same thing.
I have to be a bit
My
more,
hips start to bother me, elbow stuff. It's like once you start really...
knee or like, just...
Get off my lawn!
Yeah.
You sound like a bunch of old
driving too fast.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've noticed. So also if I look at what would it take to gain that muscle, if I'm going to do it most efficiently, I probably would deal with some nagging joint stuff and things where I'm like, I don't feel compelled to do it, and I also at this point want to make sure that I want to do everything I can to not get hurt, and you know what I mean, because I like training, I like things where they're at right now.
What does your mobility training look like?
I do yoga actually. That's what I do. I do an hour of yoga a week. And so before that, I was doing
like just a regular vinyasa.
Yeah, vinyasa.
Flow?
Yeah, exactly. And before that, I was doing an upper and lower body mobility routine, but I found yoga more enjoyable. And in some ways, I'm getting more out of yoga than I was out of the mobility work.
It's the mindfulness aspect of yoga. That's my. Do you do like a legit like the mindfulness practice with it, or is it just?
I actually prefer that. Even when you go into like meditation, it's just not. I haven't really. It's not really for me. I don't know. It doesn't. I don't feel like I don't do anything. I don't get anything out of it. Even journaling and stuff. Like I'd rather just work.
Have you tried like?
Honestly, I'd be sitting there. Like, if I do all this 20 minutes, shit, I'm like
I could have made this much money if I would have fucking been doing.
Not even that. I could have just gone ahead and I would be 20 minutes into my day.
The way you got to look at it is it's trading. It's trading dimes for quarters. Like 30 minutes of meditation, you'll end up finding, no joke, and I learned this recently.
Yeah.
You end up getting 45 minutes back in productivity and time. So it's one of those things, but for people like you, and I can completely relate to you, I think everybody in this room
for
can.
all of us. Yeah.
Very, very hard to sit down and do nothing. That's the way I used to think about it. Like I'm just gonna sit, and then I would approach meditation like a workout. Like, all right, I'm gonna sit here and meditate.
Yeah,
fucking crazy. Which is
I'm gonna get a great idea out of this right now.
And that's
fuck.
That's
all the way there.
Opposite of meditation. So really learning to let go.
Yeah.
And then you end up finding you get to flow states better and you remember things more, and it's pretty cool. But
I can say it's very possible I'm missing out. I have
Brain FM.
Brain FM. I have an app for you to try. Did you get to try the app? It's called Brain FM, and they have like a trial thing you can do for just their basic stuff. But
do they have like music and stuff too?
They do.
Yes. I've used that.
Sleep. They do sleep, focus, meditation.
Oh, you do focus.
What's that?
Did you do the focus one? Have you tried it?
I have.
Yeah.
I've tried it. I liked it actually.
Yeah.
Like I can't say I noticed a difference, but it was nice. Like I was listening, vibing while I'm working.
Yeah.
I tend to just listen to like classical though when I work. I mean that's for me for whatever reason, especially because if I'm writing, like if I'm going, so I'd have when I was doing 4 hours of communication stuff a day, I had it pretty efficiently, like using all the keyboard shortcuts on Google and like made it as I would burn through these emails, and so I'd put on like hard style, obnoxious, loud, just weird electronic music that just get me like go, 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 you know what I mean? And then,
all industrial.
Yeah, actually, like what was some of the shit? I don't even remember.
It was like Skrillex.
It's called hardstyle. No, it's called hardstyle. It's like I don't even know how to characterize it. It's just like
it's like
fast.
two computers fucking each other.
Yeah,
basically.
a lot of weird noise and just really fast and like cheesy vocals and shit.
What's that sound like?
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Sweet.
But then for the more deep focused stuff, I like classical and I'll listen to some soundtracks as well.
What do you listen to classical? Do you have particular artists? Or do you...
Yeah, so I listen to a lot of Max Richter. Dude's amazing. I love particularly his Vivaldi's Four Seasons Recomposed. Amazing. Like the first.
I just started getting into classical music myself because I found
highly
it to be,
recommend.
There's something. There's definitely something to it. And it's different than other forms of music. It's very interesting.
Totally. It actually makes me want to learn piano. So I have a piano in my house that my wife wanted to buy it just because it looks nice. And I was like, that's an expensive thing that just looks nice. But okay. So, but now I'm actually.
Your kids are going to learn it though.
Yeah. Lennox already plays. My son already plays on it.
Yeah.
And actually, honestly, like I would like to do it. Right now, it's just a matter of like, I'm not ready to carve time out for it because that's kind of how I'm very much my life is a routine, and I'm a big believer in routine. And I think in many ways it allows me it frees me up to do the things that I really want to do. Like a lot of people think of routine as restrictive, especially if it's fairly structured. Like I know pretty much what I'm doing most days from this time to this time is going to be this kind of thing, whatever. But anyway, so yeah, Max Richter is really good. Philip Glass is really good. I've been listening to a lot of Luigi Boccherini. Actually,
it's my cousin.
Yeah, cousin, great.
Yeah, Boccherini.
Yeah.
What do you do for fun besides work?
So
like if you're like you and you're like, okay, I got some time. Like I'm gonna do what I really want to fucking do and have a good time.
So I haven't been in Virginia. So in Florida, I had like my routine was I would golf on like Sunday afternoons.
Okay.
And so I was into that. And, but it was funny because like the first probably 500 hours of golf or so was working on building a swing. Cause I don't like to be bad at things. Like I don't like to do things that I'm bad at. So if I'm going to do something, I'm going to get good at it or I'm not going to do it basically. And so to get good at golf, and I'd read, 20, that's also what I'll do. If I'm going to get into something, I'm like, I'll find 20 books to read on it.
Oh my
right?
God. How did that go? And that is such a complicated sport.
I mean, actually, so it went well, but just because I'm such an OCD Nazi about how I'm going about it, right? So like I read a bunch of books, and one of the first things was a book called Every Stroke Counts, really good book. If anyone's into golf and you haven't read it, read it, right? This is a guy, he's a professor of statistics at Brown University, I believe. And he is business statistics, but also happens to be a golf aficionado. And so anyways, the dude, because of who he was, he got access to the PGA's, they have a database going back, I think a couple decades now, of every long shot accurate to within a yard and every putt accurate to within an inch. And so they gave him access to all of their data and basically allowed him to just go have fun and see what kind of correlations there were. And so basically he kind of debunked similar to like it's like I won't say it's my book, but it was a book that like overturned a lot of things that people assumed about golf and what made for good golf. You know what I mean? And one of the big takeaways was that if you want to be a great golfer, you have to have a good long game, meaning like getting to the green where you're putting, you have to, especially off the tee, so like your drives and then your approach shots, that's where great golf is. That's where it happens, and there are different reasons for that, and it's backed up with data. And so, anyways, this dude, his work, he came up with a statistic that the PGA Tour now uses. So I mean, he's completely legit, right? And so that's why I was like, okay, so I want to get good. I don't want to just be like okay. So I need to have a good long game, which means I need to have a good swing, and that's what a lot of people, going back to doing what most people don't want to do. They don't want to work on building a swing because it's a pain in the fucking ass. It's
so tough to intellectualize that, right? So like every little nuance thing that you have to do mechanically.
There's so much that goes on in your body.
Yeah. You have to get to a point too where you've reached that kind of flow state where you let it free flow.
Totally.
So how did you even get close to that?
So that's a matter of, again, first understanding intellectually what the big moving parts are in the swing and how things need to, like, what are the sequences and how does it all come together? And then there's also doing a lot of work on camera, because I mean, I'd say it's, I mean, there's a similarity with any physical action, but like even weightlifting, when you first were squatting for the first time, you thought you're even.
I explain breaking down a squat or a deadlift or a snatch or a movement like that to a golf swing. Like the mechanics, there's so much. It's because the whole entire body is incorporated. There's not a lot of like basic exercise movements that they're most hinging, but the golf swing, all planes are getting incorporated. Exactly. So many muscles, upper, lower. So very similar,
and it's very foreign because it's rotary and everything
and
else.
It's asymmetrical. It's just weird. It's just a weird movement. It's really not like it doesn't come naturally.
Right. Nothing else emulates it really.
Exactly. Except for like people that make generally good golfers are baseball players, because there's a lot like it's actually, the golf swing is very similar to the baseball swing, just on a different plane.
Now you played hockey though.
Yeah, but I was a lefty.
Oh shit! So you had to go
the right
side? It meant
side?
nothing. Like there was no carryover. but so then it's working on camera, because then you have that kinesthetic awareness. You start to build that and at first it's again like when even if it's just a simple movement like a squat, what you think you're doing is not what you're doing. You put yourself on camera.
So you filmed the whole process.
So I worked for probably 500 hours on camera, working on my swing and just nitpicking, working with a couple different coaches, and then also myself, just modeling my swing on a few people on tour that have like essentially technically perfect swings. And that's also ironically, so that was just my own, like, I'm going to go about it that way because that makes the most sense to me. And so after that time,
you're like, I'm going to go relax and totally obsess about fucking golf.
That's what I'm saying. I'm weird, dude.
Perfect it right out of the gates.
Is that what you do? Like,
but it worked. It worked because like after that, right? So the people, these old guys in the range, they actually like kind of respected it because I'm putting in work. You know what I mean? But at the same time, like, you're ever gonna fucking play golf, dude? What are you doing, right? And I was telling them, I was just like, I know it, like, yeah, okay, dude. But so I came out. So these are guys, again, like you can go and play golf for your entire life and never break 90 if you count every stroke and you play from the tips. Like, play real golf. You have to be decent to break 90, right? So I spent about 500 hours until I got my swing to a point where then I'm at a point of diminishing returns, where I knew that, like, I don't need to grind my swing anymore. No, it's not perfect. I mean, I'm not on the tour, right? But it's solid and my ball striking is good now. And I know that I can take this to the course and start, actually putting up scores. And because working on the short game is much easier. It's small. There's smaller motions. Like, putting is fucking this. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you practice it over and over, fine, whatever. But it's not like learning to hit a good drive.
Right.
And so then within a couple months of then switching it to where it was more like 80% time playing to 20% in the range, my best score was an 83, which I was like a 38 or 39 in the front nine too. Like, I could have, if I would have, I fucked up a little bit on the back nine, but that could have been a break in 80. So then when I was telling guys, I was giving them shit, right? And just because, they were kind of giving me shit that I was wasting my time, right? And I was like giving them shit like, yeah, your swing sucks.
Like, here it is. What's that saying, Adam, that you like to say again? How you do one thing is how you do all things.
How you do anything is how you do everything.
Yeah. So you basically will get into something and then obsess about it.
It's kind of
hyper focus,
kind of my personality.
Just become a maniac about it. And you did that with fitness.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I tend, and that has gotten me into trouble, like in my relationship with my wife.
I was just gonna ask you.
That's exactly the direction I was going to go.
Your greatest strength is normally your greatest weakness.
Absolutely.
And I always challenge people, do you see that?
And I still struggle with it. I still struggle with it, and I, you know, I've gotten better because my wife is, I mean, she's German, right? She's a super sweet girl, but she's also German. So
I married a German too. So
yeah, so she'll only take so much shit basically, and that's how her mom
trait.
Yeah, that's how her mom is and was, and that's how her mom is. It's just in their blood. You know what I mean? So yeah, I mean, I'm just that person that like I'll tend to, if I want to do something, and it doesn't matter how stupid the goal is. The goal is to get good at golf. It means fucking nothing, right? It's a hobby. Although I'm just not good at like, oh, let's just go and fucking drink a couple beers and hit some balls in the woods. Like, I get no enjoyment out of that. You know what I mean? Like, I'd rather work. I'd rather just go and write.
A lot of people do get enjoyment out of that.
I know. I'm broken. I don't know, dude.
No, it's fine.
My two best
different.
friends. So it's funny because, okay, so like maybe 5-6 years ago, my two best friends, childhood, we grew up together, elementary school, and they live about an hour and a half away from here. They got into golf. Hardcore. Like, I mean, that's all they do now on weekends. And it finally got to a point where it's like, fuck, if I want to see my boys, I got to pick this sport up that I don't give two shits about. Yeah. And like yourself, like instantly, like I can't just play something and just be okay with being shitty and chasing balls. It's like, so, you know, I'm secretly at the range 4 or 5 times a week, fucking hitting, getting good at. And I mean, I just could not keep up with the amount of volume that I needed to put in it to actually play. And so I get really frustrated because they're fucking good and they keep playing and stuff. And I'm like, man, I don't have enough of a passion for it. And I don't have the ability to just go out there, have some beers and not care. Like, I know that will drive me more. I'm like, this is not relaxing for me like, at all. It's just frustrating because it makes me want to go home and go practice so I can actually put a good score up.
I know. So that's how I'll be. I'll get something in my mind, and then that's all I'll want to do. Like, I literally won't want to do anything else.
God,
like,
we're all the same. That's so funny.
So I'll want to fully obsess. You know what I mean? Like, I joke that maybe I should have been in the military or something. Be that person, like, just go and find all those people and kill them. And I'd be like, absolutely. That's my life. That's all I want to do with my life right now is find those fuckers and kill them. You know what I mean? And so yeah, I mean, that's been where I've just gone, you know, to where I'll work. I mean, I don't know, 90 hours a week or something, and completely neglect everything else, including Sarah, and just almost like as if I don't exist. You know what I mean? And that has absolutely caused problems to where, I mean, Sarah has made it very clear that that's not what she signed up for. Like, that's not going to work. You know what I mean? She wants to have a relationship. She wants to have a family, and, you know, that's just not her thing. And I understand. So I've had to, like,
she's normal.
Yeah. Right.
And we're not.
And she married a maniac, which is part of the reason why she liked you.
I have a gem for you then, because we had a similar conversation. Kelly Start was in here just a couple of days ago, and we were talking about this, and this is something that we all are very similar, and I have learned now, being a 36-year-old man, like, I have to put systems in place to make sure that I'm a good partner, you know. And it's not a matter of loving or not loving my girl. It's just a matter of, like, understanding who you are, and that this is what's made me successful my whole life, is I have this ability to become hyper focused on whatever it is that I'm passionate about. And that doesn't mean I don't love her. It's just that's just how I work. And so I've also realized that that's also not an excuse for me not to be able to make time for her or make her happy. So
totally. I mean, especially also, I mean, I've had to run, and you've probably had the same thing where, like, if you look at it logically, putting in that extra hour and a half at the end of the night, how much am I really gaining? You know what I mean? Versus what I'm losing. Yeah. I mean, and not even that, like, even let's say it's efficient work even, but still in the bigger picture, you know, I've already put in a lot of time. It's not just me. I mean, everything also that I don't take credit for everything that I talk about. It's not just me. I mean, I have a team of also smart people that work very hard and very conscientious and really care. So, you know, I play my role basically, but still, so I can say, like, all right, we have the end of the night here, and I can, that extra hour and a half that I can put in before bed, in the bigger picture, let's say it gets me this much in that sphere of like, cool, keeps things moving a little bit, but it's going to cause this much harm, you know, on the relationship,
which ends up setting you back, because now you're dealing with a relationship issue where you got to which could end up being hours and days that could drag on if you're
or even
in the
just the
doghouse.
mental strain of it, you know, right? Then you know, even if when you know you're wrong too, you're like, yeah, I'm fucking dumb.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah. And then so maybe you're in a little bit of a funk for a couple days where, so, you know, I've had to also realize that I'm in some ways just being illogical and just giving into my lizard brain that just says like, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, that's what you want to do. You know, you want to just fucking work all the time, don't you?
Power through.
So something that so this year we started doing this, and this is what I was telling Kelly, and he's like, man, that's a really good gym. You should share that. And I've shared, so our listeners are probably tired of hearing me say, because I've said it several times, but anytime I get a chance to talk to a guest who I think has similar issues as all three of us have with our partners when it comes to that. We started in January. We said, okay, here's the deal. This is what we're going to do is together we're going to knock out a book a month together. It's a book we'll choose together, and we'll listen to it audible. And so, you know, and why I like a small goal like that, it gives us a goal. So it's not hard to knock one book out in a month. I'm not overreaching, you know what I'm saying? We could probably push more, but it's like, hey, I know what that would require. That requires a few hours a week, every single week, for us to make sure that we sit and we listen to it or go on a nice drive or whatever. And it's been incredible for our relationship because it always creates incredible dialogue, which I know that's what she's searching for, that interaction.
Yep. I've had the same thing where sometimes also I'm just kind of too, I mean, I'm generally a higher energy person, but there's a point where dealing, you know, after maybe it's 14 hours of a day where I'm just kind of like, I don't want to talk. I just want to be left alone now.
Yeah. I'm totally different home than I am here. Because you're on. You're on. So when you go home, you kind of shut down and you're all up in here because you're thinking about everything else, right? So very cerebral, right? So we all are very much so alike like that. And this has done wonders for me and our relationship, because it ends up, it gives her what she needs, because she gets that quality time with me. It strikes up good conversation. It forces me to be present because I'm listening to this book with her. And it's not a lot of time that I have to take. Plus, I'm growing too. So I'm learning. We choose something we both want to learn it. You know, Rise of Superman was actually the first book that we read together. So if she's growth minded too, which I imagine she is if you married her. So that has been like a fucking game changer.
That's smart. Yeah, I like that. We've actually, something similar was we started listening to those Jordan Peterson Bible lectures.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it was kind of tough because this was at the end of her pregnancy. So I mean, it depends how she was feeling. Like at the end, she's pretty uncomfortable. So sometimes it'd only be like maybe 20 minutes at night or 30 minutes at night. But and that's how it started. I mean, it wasn't even necessarily I think it's smart that you thought about it and figured something out. I didn't even go that far. I just was like, these are really interesting. You should listen to these with me. That was kind of
what I noticed, and because you are a goal-oriented person like I am, that same way. Like I felt like if I and we agreed on this at the beginning of the year, it was a New Year's resolution type of deal for us. We agreed that, let's set a goal to hold us accountable, because we both know, how you'll get with business. Something will happen and you'll be like, oh, honey, we'll get to that. But right now, this is a priority. And if I set a goal and I'll stick to it, just the way I am, and so
same way.
And I
just hate doing things when I feel like there's no real purpose.
Right.
Like if I can't really justify to myself, why am I doing this? I just tend to it just makes me, I just get bored. You know what I mean? And I don't like that feeling.
Which is a sign that you may benefit sometimes from doing that. If you're trying to fight it so hard, and you're obviously, I've only met you for 2 days, but I could say safely 100% with 100% certainty, I don't think you'd ever have an issue with not being productive. I don't think that would ever be an issue for you.
Right.
But setting a time aside to kind of do that, you'll probably maybe you might see some benefit from it.
Yeah.
I guess I
don't disagree.
Yeah, and the irony of it is going into it thinking that may actually backfire. Like, I'm going to go into this knowing it's going to make me more productive.
This is going to create.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it just makes it more. So now, as a father, you're in the fitness, space. This is a big part of your expertise. You have kids now. How do you? Your oldest is what, 4? You said 4 now. Mm-hmm. How do you tackle food with kids? We get this question all the time because it's very different. It's one thing being an adult.
It's a recurring theme for sure.
Yeah, it's one thing being an adult and eating right or whatever, but then when you're dealing with a kid and then they go to birthdays or they start going to school, and what are some takeaways that you can maybe give our audience that you found with your kids, or how do you handle that?
So far, so Lennox he's been going to school for about a year now, and I would say that he's not a big fan of sweets and like the normal junk food stuff maybe that kids go to. And I also don't like not allow him to have some, like.
Now, is it because you created good habits around the house of just you guys eat that way?
Exactly. And he also sees, so like when, he sees how Sarah and I eat, which is generally very clean, so to speak, and not because I have weird ideas about clean eating, but no, like I'm talking about eating nutritious foods,
right. Whole foods,
exactly, whole foods. I eat a lot of fruits, a lot of vegetables, a lot of whole grains, and I myself am not an indulgent person when it comes to food. I don't. I think I have a good relationship with food where I can go out and I can eat random stuff and enjoy it or not. You know what I mean? And generally, my diet is I prefer to eat that way. And so like my little thing is I like dark chocolate. So I'll have maybe 150 calories of dark chocolate every day, and that's enough. That's satisfying. I like that. You know what I mean? And so Lennox from the beginning, Sarah also did a good job in the beginning exposing him to different foods when he was a baby. So like blending up different stuff, vegetables, fruits, and just kind of, I guess, maybe conditioning his palate in that way, as opposed to giving him very sugar-laden stuff right off the bat.
I'm glad you said conditioning his palate. That's something that's real important there, because if you do understand that you're conditioning your child's palate, you know that in the beginning, like any kind of conditioning,
it's crucial.
It's going to suck. If you have a kid and you're all of a sudden like, oh, okay, we need to clean up their diet. It's going to take you.
All they've eaten is like candy and like fast food.
It's going to take you a second
from there.
It's going to take you a second, and you're going to have to recondition them with new foods, and it's a slow process. So because I've had people message me and they're like, oh, I tried what you said and my kid just didn't want to eat, so that's not going to work for us. It's like, well, it's going to take some time. Like you have to change the way they perceive the taste of these foods and associate it.
I mean, there's research on both that point of exposing when they're especially when they're infants, exposing them. And I believe, if I remember correctly, I read it a bit ago, but I believe it also, you can even start with breastfeeding, if I remember correctly.
Yeah,
it starts in the womb.
Yeah. They have studies now. We got was it Dr. Nicole Avina we had on the show that got into that?
Yeah, talking about that.
So that then I would say I didn't even know that, but then that has also benefited Lennox, and then now my daughter Romy as well will benefit from that. In that Sarah's diet, she also she really enjoys eating fruits and same way, and she eats a variety of things. So I guess Lennox had a leg up in that sense to start with. But he's still a kid. Like, he doesn't like vegetables. He just doesn't. Even though he would eat them as a baby, and Sarah would find ways to make them taste good without like adding sugar. You know what I mean? But combining some sweeter, like if you cook carrots, they get sweet, so you can mix that with some green stuff and whatever, and he would eat that. Now he doesn't like vegetables, but he still likes fruit, which is good. And he doesn't really like sugar, and he likes Ezekiel toast. He likes so we work around with, and he likes Greek yogurt, so he gets some protein in his diet. And we're still honestly trying to figure out, and this is something I'm sure that if I were to, I'm sure there's some good ideas out there. I haven't really tried to. It has now become a thing where I myself am like, I would like him to at least. I'd like to find some way for him to get some vegetables. And so I haven't looked into it now, but it's something that I want to do. But it's been that's kind of been the experience so far. And
I guess the big takeaway is your kids will eat the way you do.
I think there's also that as well. Yeah, setting a good example, right? So he sees that how Sarah and I eat, and of course kids mimic. That's how they learn everything, right? So that it's normal to eat the way that he eats, because that's the way that we eat. And I mean, he's not really into vegetables yet, but maybe we can figure out, like, at least find something that he likes. But on the whole, his diet is very good, and there is that he sees us eating like that as well. So of course, then that's normal.
It's a difficult uphill battle. Even being as aware as you are with health and in fitness, it's just because then they go out into the world, and what you don't want to do, because I know this through personal experience, because I grew up in a traditional Italian home, and none of us have good relationships with food. We love food for sure, but just through our upbringing, and you got to clean your plate and force you to eat this and bribe you to eat that. You develop these poor relationships, but. The other thing you don't want to do is be so crazy strict about it that's how they rebel.
Yes.
Because kids will rebel against whatever you are insane about. And this is when you get the kids who go off to college and just eat horribly. I have a friend like this.
Blow themselves up.
Freshman 15.
I have a friend like this. Like, we would go to school and he ate like the most healthiest lunches and snacks, and he couldn't eat certain things because his mom was a nutritionist and she was super, super strict. And I saw him on Facebook not that long ago, and he's like, massively obese, and I know my guess is.
I mean, you're like,
my guess is he's like, I had such a bad experience with all these foods and my parents, and now I'm going to go eat all this horrible garbage. So, let's talk about exercise for a second, because I know people are listening to this for fitness advice too. What are some of your philosophies?
I hate talking about all that stuff all the time, though. We all have, you know what I'm saying?
Well, let's give them some takeaways.
Let's talk about macros.
Right. Let's talk about
not macros, but
let's talk about progressive overload.
Yeah, exactly. What are some of your takeaway philosophies with exercise? What are some things that you'd like to hammer home with your audience?
So my audience, primarily like the people that I mean, chose to serve and then now obviously serve most is people, I'd say the general fitness crowd, right? So people that are, this is kind of their introduction to strength training, or they've been kind of dabbling in resistance training of one kind or another and haven't quite seen the results that, they wanted. So it's a lot of the basics again of, exercise selection, programming, progressive overload, volume, and then also not making rest and recovery, making sure that you are recovering and not, because it's become like high frequency, high volume training is the thing right now.
Beast mode, all out, no days off.
Yeah, exactly. 6-7 days a week. And like, so you're like squatting, pulling, bench, overhead pressing twice a week, and you're going to have your heavy day, which is legit heavy, and then you're going to have your hypertrophy day, which is and it's fine if you can recover from it. And I like I've emailed with quite a few people on some of these programs where they just can't do it. You know what I mean? Even just younger guys in a surplus, like Lane Norton's fat program. I'm not like casting aspersion on the program at all, but I can just say from personal experience, working with a lot of people, I've heard from a lot of people that after a couple months on running fat, they do not feel good.
It's just too much.
Yeah, and I can't say, of course, I know exactly what they've done, and I mean I've emailed back and forth just to get information because I'm kind of curious, like. How much do they really know about their diet? And what's their sleep hygiene like? Just the obvious things. And so again, I've come across quite a few people that they knew what they were doing, and they were doing everything right that I could tell, and had struggled with his program. And again, I don't mean to say that it's a bad program at all. It's just very difficult.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like there is this, even for intelligent, program creators. There's this thing where it's like, let's make the hardest program we can write, so that if people fail, they feel like, oh, the reason why I don't look the way I want to look is because I can't complete this thing. It's like that. It's that mentality.
I'm not tough enough.
Right.
That's maybe even a little bit too cynical of it. Maybe some people are doing that.
Yeah, dude. I feel like a lot of them that we have met. Okay. I mean, they're putting workouts that are 40, 50 sets in a
that's absurd.
Yeah. And it's like anybody who's trained, hundreds or thousands of people like we have know that 90% of those people will never be able to handle that type of volume.
Well, I think it's a protective memechanism too, because if you're pointing out and you're criticizing some of that, like that's the first thing. It's like, well, you just can't do it because you're not, you're not awesome.
Yeah.
So we do get that a lot. Like, to be honest with you, there's a lot of guys touting that kind of behavior. So
I mean, the human body can handle a tremendous amount of frequency and volume if you allow your body time to get to that point.
Yes.
It's a long, slow process, and there's a large individual variance.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like our programs, we kind of scale them. We talk about like MAPS Aesthetic is one of the programs that we have, is by far our most high volume program. And we tell people like, listen, if you don't have excellent recovery ability and you're not used to lots of volume and frequency, you're going to end up burning yourself out.
Start back at MAPS Anabolic, where we'll recommend only 2 days a week, then 3 days a week.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's that rest and recovery thing. There's that individual variance. But at the end of the day, it's like, listen to your body, man.
Totally.
Like if you're not getting results and your body's not improving, listen to your body.
Totally.
Change it a little bit.
Yeah. And there's also something to be said for, again, so the people that I'm serving, most of them, they don't need to be in the gym for what they want. They don't need to be in the gym 6 days a week. They don't need to be pulling and squatting twice a week with high volume, heavy weight. They don't need to.
Right.
And so you know, that's coming back to your original question. It's just indoctrinating people in the basics of, I mean, first it's starting at first principles, right? So on the diet side of things, it's obviously energy balance and macronutrient balance, and then there's food choices and nutritional quality and so forth, and then on the training side is teaching the basics of progressive overload and frequency and volume and how these things all relate, and how obviously at the top of everything is progressive overload, and then you have the other pathways of growth of, you know, metabolic stress and muscle damage. So it's just kind of laying out the foundation for people so they understand these are the variables, these are these are what we're playing with. In some ways, it's like there are certain things here that are not negotiable on the diet. For example, like energy balance is not negotiable. What you eat is negotiable. Your macros are negotiable. You could say, depending on what you want to do, there are optimal ways of going about it and non-optimal. So, you know, I'm really like my program, my Bigger, Leaner, Stronger is like, it has a program right with it. And it's a basically it's like a push pull legs with accessory work, which I think is a great introduction for new people where they're not in again, they can get their workouts done in, let's say, 45 to 60 minutes. They're not beating the shit out of themselves. Like they actually leave their workouts feeling good.
Which is how you should leave your workout.
Exactly. which matters. I mean, because there's something to be said for just enjoyment, I think, with diet and training, where, you know, the best diet is the one you can stick to, but there's some truth to that, where, you know, even if there were the most scientifically optimized diet or training program, let's just say whatever that might be, if you don't like it, if you don't enjoy, if you're not looking forward to eating your next meal or your next workout, it's not going to last. Yeah. You have to find something that works for you and work within certain parameters is kind of how I've gone about approaching it. So on the training side of things, that program, like Bigger, Leaner, Stronger, is that optimal for someone that's like an intermediate or advanced weightlifter that really wants to maximize their genetic potential? No. And I say that this is not that, you know what I mean? Like that's where, to the point of like you guys are saying, yeah, you have to do a lot of fucking work. You have to do a lot more work, and it becomes exponentially harder, you know, to gain those last 5 pounds of muscle. You have to work so much harder than you had to work to gain that first 20 pounds of muscle. Right. And that's fine.
That's a great point.
If you want to play that game, that's what you want to do, that's great. Just know that, you know what I mean? And so again, the crowd, the people that I've helped most are people that have benefited most from learning the basics and then putting them into use. And so if we're talking guys, I'm talking about guys really kind of gaining their first 30-ish pounds of muscle, you know what I mean? And so, I mean, and I've found in working with a lot of guys and a lot of just if I'm segmenting just the male, you know, population of my following, they're pretty happy like with their first. These are people that they have fitness is not their lives. I mean, they have jobs, a lot of them have families, they have fitness is something they really enjoy and it matters to them, but they don't want to also be spending hours and hours in the gym, and they're not trying to look like a fitness model per se. They want to look good and they want to feel good. They want to have energy. They want to do workouts they enjoy, and they want it to be a lifestyle. And so that's kind of how I've gone about it.
Well, even if you do want to eventually look like a cover of a magazine, I still think that's the process you have to go through first anyways.
True.
I think that's the biggest mistake because let's be honest, a lot of people, even people that are just starting, you know, in the back of their head, they say, oh, I just want to feel better, look better. In the back of their mind, like, well, I wouldn't mind looking like the cover of a magazine.
Yeah.
The problem is that they go right to those magazine workouts and they start trying to follow these routines that somebody who's hopped up on a lot of steroids or have been training for 10 years and they can handle all this volume.
2 hours of arms or something.
Yes, right. And then they try and go straight to that thing. And it's like, no, we always talk about that. Like the goal is to do as little as possible to elicit the most amount of change.
Yep.
And then you build upon that.
Yep. I talk about that in the book. Like that's kind of, I wouldn't say I necessarily want to go with the minimal effective dose, but more let's err on the side more of that as opposed to getting past that point of diminishing returns where you can put in a bunch of extra work, but are you really getting that much more out of it? No, I mean I talk about this especially with people that are new to weightlifting, because they'll ask me about. Because my program it's a bit lower volume than what is popular right now, right? Like what you'll see all over Instagram. And so guys will ask me about that, and guys that are new to weightlifting, and I'll say, look, I mean, and I'll link them to an article where I have these calculators. Right? I mean, you can go check this out if you want to check this out and see why am I saying this. But what I'm telling you is you're only going to really gain no more than 25 pounds of muscle in your first year, regardless of what you do. And if you're like most guys, it's probably going to be around 20, give or take some, right? And, you know, at this point, I've worked personally just in staying in touch with people, thousands of guys. And I can tell you that if you just do what is in this book, you will get there. You will get to around 20 pounds of muscle unless you're an extremely low responder, or if you don't stick to the plan and you fuck around
you just
on your
fuck
diet.
off the diet, right?
Yeah, you fuck off on your diet and don't pay attention at least to your calories. So, you know, you're in a deficit half the time anyway, and you don't even know it, kind of thing. And so I'll say, like, what else do you want, basically? I mean, you can go jump from you, and you can spend, you know, the next 2 months researching programs and trying to get, you know, super sophisticated with your programming and, you know, undulate your volume, and you're still not going to get more than 20-ish pounds of muscle in your first year. So, especially in the beginning, is like, this is simple and you're going to enjoy it, and you're going to get more or less everything that you can get out of it. Now, again, if we were having this conversation and you had put in a few years of good, solid work, and you've really gained some strength, so then I think as you get stronger, higher volume has more value from a muscle building potential, because you actually can move some weight. You're not just like weak as fuck doing high volume, like benching 135 or something. And so from like a muscle damage perspective,
that's my max,
shit, that's all right. That's all right. So then that would be a different discussion.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah, it's great finding people in the fitness world that are addressing these types of things like you, and that are being honest.
It's crazy to hear his philosophy for as little as you've been in the industry for. Well,
I mean, look at the guy. He's super smart, and he obviously obsesses about things. So he gets into it and he learns. And when you do that, there's negatives to it, but there's positives too. And the positives are throughout, you know, some period of time, you start to sift through a lot of bullshit, and you start to see what really is the truth and what really works. And
coming with a clear lens, and you see everything for what it is.
Because I'll be the first to admit, I fucked up for 10 years. I was an idiot. Bad advice, doing bad things for the first 10 years of our career. It's the back half where we really started to piece things together.
One of the biggest when we first launched our programs, the first program we launched was MAPS Anabolic, and we call that our foundational program. And the biggest complaint we would get is before people would even try the program, they'd buy it, they'd open it and be like, oh, I know all this stuff. This looks basic. I'm like, no.
I mean, I've had that. I've gotten reviews like, oh, this is all just free on the internet. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's like, try it and do it and see what happens. And there's also, you know, there's a lot of complexity in the simplicity. There's a lot of things that people don't see and don't understand from a programming standpoint, where it may look basic, but there really is things, you know, it's really
there was thought.
there
there was thought put into this.
Absolutely. Yeah. So what, moving ahead, like, what is really fascinating you right now in health and fitness? I don't care. You can go as deep as you want. Like, what's really fascinating right now? What are you obsessed about right now in this particular sphere?
So that's a good question. I would say it's on what I'm most interested in personally is on the content creation side of things. So I'm excited I'm putting together, I guess you could say, I mean, it's like a team of people, so we can get more content going, because I can only, you know, do so much myself, which has been really just me up until recently. And then I've brought in one person to help with some, I mean, I've had some, like, I have a girl that helps with research, and she's really good going through the literature. It probably saves me 6 to 8 hours if it's on something. If I want to write on something, because there's like an opportunity in terms of like SEO, right? So like that's my strategy first and foremost with all written content, or most of the written content, is there an SEO opportunity here? I want to stick something on the first page, ideally obviously I want the first spot, but I want to stick something in the first page of Google. How do
you go about finding that? How's that strategy work? You have somebody who's like
trends on Twitter, or
well, no, I mean, there's like a whole checklist basically, but you know who's written a lot of good stuff about this is Neil Patel. So anyone listening, if you go to neilpatel.com and also QuickSprout, and I mean, it's all, you know, I just kind of follow.
Does he have a book? That name sounds really
Hustle.
Okay, I was gonna say, no, I've seen that name.
Yeah, he's also a friend of mine, and Jeremy's cool dude, super nice guy. Like he kind of consults for us. I mean, we don't have to pay him, but he's just really nice, actually. Like he's very helpful. You know what I mean? But yeah, honestly, I just follow the little structure that he has, and it's obvious stuff. You're looking at search volume. You're looking at who you're going up against. You know, the competition. So, and also you need to know like your domain authority. So, like for example, I know Muscle for Life has high topical authority on things related to body composition, right? But lower topical authority on things just related to general health. So, for example, let's say I wanted to write an article on push-pull legs, which I did, right? So if I go on Google, push-pull legs, for one of the steps is looking at who am I competing with, what's out there, right? What's on the first page of Google. You go and you look at every article and you look at how long it is. You're looking for strengths and also, more importantly, weaknesses. What could you do better? You know what I mean? How could I write a better article than what is up on Google right now? And so I'll see, let's say I see bodybuilding.com, I see, all the different magazines, they're big websites, and I see blah, 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 whatever. I know that I can beat all of them. I know I can outrank them. Like if I produce something better, Muscle for Life can outrank them. Now, if I wanted to write something on, something on like your blood sugar, we actually just published that on Legion. I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to go. Normally I'd stay away from that because for that kind of thing, usually going up against, I think this was like the opportunity. This is a little bit unique in that it wasn't as, the competition was heavy. It wasn't as heavy as we'd usually see. But like if it was more of a health related thing and I was going up against like WebMD and any sort of EDU, even Authority Nutrition has a lot of topical authority there, I would skip it because I know I cannot beat them, right? Also ran into this so I would do these recipe posts, and I had a girl that was really good, and she would like do a bunch of research. She'd put time into it, right? And like 20 different types of recipes and find stuff that is kind of macro friendly and not like outrageously high calorie, high fat shit all the time that like when can you, maybe you can eat that here and there, but most people, they're not eating 150 grams of fat a day, so they can't eat 80 grams of fat for dinner. You know what I mean? And so, but I know that like I really can't rank. I can't beat. I don't even just the big food sites and food blogs and stuff to rank for even lower traffic, lower competition stuff. So you have to know like what will Google allow you to rank for and kind of stick to your wheelhouse, so to speak. And so that's part of it, right? And looking at then how do you do something better? Generally, the longer the better as far as rankings go. So like a sweet spot, the problem is the longer it is, the harder it is for people to want to read it, which is something like Greg Nuckols obviously has run into with his stuff. And he knows that. I mean, he's writing to a very specific crowd, but the average person, when the first thing you see on an article is a paragraph this big, that has like 15, 22 syllable words, you're just like, no, this is not for me. Like I'm clearly in the wrong place.
I don't have that long a coffee break.
And I'm saying that I love Greg's work. I'm a big fan of his work, and I've had him on the podcast.
It's like what you and I talked about yesterday. Just like some people, as far as like the average consumer listening is not.
Yeah. And he knows that. He knows that he's writing to more or
professionals.
More people like him than just like the Gen Fit crowd. So anyways, that's kind of like what if I'm going to be writing, I'm looking for first and foremost an SEO opportunity, and then finding how can I do something really good? You know what I mean? How can I put something out there that's going to rank and that people are really going to enjoy? So, anyways, ramping that up, which is fun because it's the type of stuff I like to do. I like to research. I like to write. I like to formulate ideas and articulate them. So that can be writing or it can be speaking. So I enjoy the podcast. So I'm like having fun with that, where now I'm doing 3 episodes a week on my podcast. And like previously I was so kind of off the cuff and nonchalant about it. And that's why I was like unprofessional and I'm almost embarrassed about it. But now I'm like actually applying myself a bit more to it, which is fun. And so I'm working on also, I'm going to do a series of, on the book front, I'm going to do a series of shorter books that I'm going to be self-publishing because there's an opportunity there, and that's fun. Like I almost have the first one done, and then I'm also working on my next actual book, which is going to be, I'm going to do a traditional publishing deal because I want to do a New York Times campaign. I'm going to do it. I don't have to pay the unnamed company a lot of money for it because I can get the sales legitly. I don't need to buy them. Like I have enough people that will actually buy the book, and that's not even factoring in people like you guys maybe that might want to promote it when it comes out. That's just I'm just thinking like in my own ecosystem, I think I can drive enough sales
for sure.
And I would like to do that. I mean, because one, it's kind of cool. I will say as like. I consider myself first and foremost a writer, and it's kind of cool from a bucket list thing, right? To have a legit NYT, like I didn't just buy it, you know what I mean? Like I had to work for it. And then also I just know that it will open doors, especially media stuff that might not otherwise even know about. And it's kind of stupid, but it just is what it is. If you are a New York Times bestselling author, that people perk up.
It's got a lot of clout.
Yeah, it does. So that's something I'm excited for, and honestly, like I'm also excited for the group that I'm putting together. I like working with the guys that I have, and we're bringing on some more people, and that's it's fun from that perspective. So
excellent. Yeah. So we can expect a lot more out of you.
Stuff.
A lot more stuff out of you. And you have a new baby.
Health and fitness things. Yeah, that's like when people ask what I do, I'm like, I do health and fitness things. Like, what do you mean? I'm like, I have some books. And
that's rad, man. So you mind sticking around doing like a Q&A with us later on?
Yeah, no, definitely.
That'd be fucking awesome.
Let's go grab something to eat. Let's go grab something to eat right now, and then we'll definitely continue on with some stuff.
Yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. We'll do another episode.
I totally appreciate you guys having me.
Excellent. So check this out. Go to mindpumpmedia.com. We have 30 days of coaching. It's available, and it's for free. It's for anybody. Also, if you want to find us on social media, the place to find us is Instagram. Our page is Mind Pump Media. We all have personal pages as well. Mine is Mind Pump Sal. Justin is Mind Pump Justin, and Adam is Mind Pump Adam. We'll record your intro afterwards. Right, yeah.